Welcome back. Don't go out there, listeners. We're honored to be joined today by another veteran of the industry with 43 acting credits listed on her IMDb, including the upcoming release, Touch Me, Miss Olivia Taylor Dudley. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm doing really great. Thank you. How are you guys?
Doing great.
Doing well. Not too bad, not too bad. We just kind of like to start off asking all of our guests, Olivia, what is it that got you into this business? Is this something you've always wanted to do?
Yeah, I think it's something that I've always wanted to do. I mean, I grew up watching movies a lot. I grew up watching the TV. I mean, my parents worked a lot. They're wonderful, but I literally was glued to the television as a child. And I remember when I was 5, I snuck into the living room where my dad was watching The Exorcist, and I saw Linda Blair on the screen doing, everything she's doing in that movie, and I was so
Ooh,
terrified and so it's obviously I was 5. I should not have been watching that, but nobody knew I was there, and I was so moved by her. And then in the end, when I realized it wasn't real, I was like, wait, she just got to play pretend and do all that. I want to do that. I mean, I don't think at that age I understood that I wanted to do that as a living, but I was like,
right.
really sparked my imagination. And I was a really, as a kid, I would do plays at the house by myself. Like I was always writing stories and playing characters. And so I think, yeah, I think I caught the acting bug at a very young age.
Awesome.
So,
Well, I mentioned that you have, you know, a lot of acting credits, 73, not 43, sorry, on your IMDb. And of those, 11 are horror. So what is it about the genre that keeps pulling you back in? Are you a lifelong horror fan? I mean, you mentioned Linda Blair there. Or is it just that these specific roles are right for you?
I mean, I guess it's a combination of both. I'm such a horror fan. I've loved, like I said, I've loved horror movies since I was little. I, I still watch horror movies like almost every day. I just think the genre is so much fun. And, the thing that interests me in horror is that it's such a good vehicle for telling any sort of story that the filmmaker wants to tell. Touch Me, it's a movie about it's a movie about addiction and mental health, but it's like wrapped up in this like horror comedy. And it's just no other genre can quite do what horror can do and
right.
sci-fi, it's not even necessarily about those things. It's not necessarily about the horror, which is the thing we love about horror, but like it always has a message. And once I realized that, I think that it's just such a powerful form of telling stories, and I think it's really gotten really elevated too. And I love how respected horror has become in the industry, and
Yeah.
it's always ever changing and exciting. Like I love doing comedy, I love doing drama, but horror is ever changing. You never know. When I get a script that I know is going to be in the genre space in horror or sci-fi, I'm like, I don't know what it's going to be. Like the log line doesn't necessarily mean anything. You know what I mean?
Right.
You could dig in, and there's so much creative space that a writer can take up with the parameters of horror. It's kind of endless. So I think it's a very exciting place to work. And I guess when I first started my career, I did a lot of comedy, but also horror, because at the time, like, I think, in I would say like horror, my favorite horror is like horror of the 70s. But then, then it
Yeah.
went through a phase, through when I was younger, wasn't necessarily as respected as it is again now. And so it was kind of like easy to get a horror movie. They weren't necessarily like highbrow, they weren't necessarily the best. I got lucky. I got some really great horror films, but
Yeah.
now horror is really respected, and some of the biggest, most respected filmmakers make horror, and A-list actors are dying to be in a horror movie, which is so exciting to me. But I was, kind of ahead of the curve in horror, and I'm just so happy to see it become such a mainstream thing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Scream 7 just came out, and every Scream movie has the latest and greatest of who's who of cinema you're talking about. That's right.
Yeah.
Before we get to Touch Me, I'd be remiss as a horror podcast to not ask you about one of my favorite roles of yours, 2012's Chernobyl Diaries. We reviewed this a while back. It's such a creepy, horrific story, obviously rooted in real events. How'd that role come about? I mean, do you have any stories from your time working on it that you'd like to share?
I mean, wow, that was so long ago now.
Yeah.
I love that movie. I think it turned out great. It's just one that I auditioned for and got the part. And the cast was really fun. We had such a good time. We filmed that over in Serbia and Hungary. And it was a
Right.
really, really, really tough shoot because it was a lot of nights and it's really cold. You know, working in Eastern Europe is so different than, you know, working in LA. And it was a really tough shoot, like practically, but it was,
Hmm.
we had such a good time. And but it was genuinely scary while we were shooting that movie. Like, you know, we weren't, you know, filming in Chernobyl because you can't do that, but we were filming in
Right.
really creepy places. They found some terrifying places. You know, we were filming in Belgrade for a big chunk of the film, in Serbia, in these underground
Mm.
tunnels underneath the city, and it was terrifying. Like, we were going down in these tiny little tunnels to get a lot of that movie. And yeah, that was it was a big opportunity for me at the time. And
Right.
you know, it was really exciting when that came out in theaters. And yeah, I love that people still really, I get that movie gets brought up to me all the time. I haven't seen it in a while. Maybe I should rewatch it. I haven't watched it in a while.
You
You
should.
definitely
It's
should.
good.
Yeah, you should. It holds up. Um, Another film that I remember seeing you in that stuck with me for a while was 2020 She Dies Tomorrow from Neon. You talk about a paranoia fueled trip that, like I said, stuck with me. Can you talk to me a little bit about that movie and what it was like working with a cast that includes, you know, Katie Hazelton, Chris Messina, Josh Lucas, Michelle Rodriguez? Just curious what that experience was like.
That movie was a whirlwind because Amy Simons, the director, is a good friend of mine. And I was actually, that movie came about in a wild way. Actually, that movie is why I ended up doing Touch Me, because I was filming Magicians up
Oh,
in Vancouver, a series I was on for a long time. And I had a day off and I was just playing pool with my castmates. And I was like, I'm gonna text Amy and check in with her. And I just texted Amy. I was like, hey, what's up? How's it going? And she's like, will you be in my film tomorrow? And I was like, what film? I was like, no, I'm working.
whoa.
She was like, well, do you have tomorrow off? And I was like, well, yeah, I have tomorrow off. And she's like, okay, will you get on a plane right now and come shoot some scenes in my movie? And I was like, and that's kind of how Amy is, the filmmaker. And I was like, I'm dying to work with her. I mean, she's a good friend, but I'm also such a fan of her work. I mean, her work is so unique. And so I literally was like in my like pajamas playing pool, went home, grabbed a bag, went to the airport. I've never done this in my life. Got a ticket, got on a plane, and flew to LA that night. Woke up, drove to set, and then there was no script really. It was kind of an outline, and like, you know, that movie is so like mind bending, esoteric.
Yeah.
Like she had to just kind of explain to me on the day what the movie was about, and I was like, whoa, dude, all right, I'm in. I don't know what I'm gonna say, but I improv, and I was working with Rodriguez and my friend Jane, and it was like I literally didn't know what we were doing while we were doing it, but it was such a fun time, and the movie turned out so good, and I'm really proud of being in that movie, even if it's only for a few scenes. But the producer on that movie, Dave Lawson, is who brought me on to Touch Me. So it's funny, like just getting a text message one day, or just texting a friend one day, led to a series of events, which is, you know, what happens sometimes and how we
Yeah.
find these weird jobs. But yeah, that movie it came out, you know, during COVID, which was
Yeah.
anything
Right.
that came out during that time. Like, we premiered and it only screened at drive-in theaters. So, you know, we were like sitting in our car
Mm.
doing Q&As over Zoom, and it was like projected on the drive-in theater. So it was a very unique
Wow.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I missed it obviously when it came out during COVID. I didn't see much of anything at that
Yeah.
time, but
That was like
I
the only
do.
movie I saw.
Yeah, I called it a couple years ago, and like I said, it stuck with me. It's such a whirlwind is a great way to describe the movie. It's such
Yeah.
a mind bender.
Yeah, Jamie's a genius.
All right, last question before we get into Touch Me. I've got to ask you about another iconic popular franchise you're in. Skylar, as in Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension. You know, obviously that's one of the most unsettling franchises there is personally. I really enjoyed The Ghost Dimension. Tell me a little bit about how that role came.
Well, actually, that role came through Oren Pelly, who created Paranormal.
Oh,
He's who made Chernobyl Diaries. He was a producer
there
on
you go.
Chernobyl Diaries. So, and same casting director. And so I think they brought me in for that movie because they were familiar with my work and we all liked working together. And so, it was kind of a no-brainer for me. I love that franchise. And the thing with the paranormal movies is there isn't necessarily a flushed out script. There's kind of an outline and some dialogue, but which I really like working on projects that are like, I like working on any kind of project, but this one in particular, it was really fun to be able to, like, we would shoot scenes for the day and then they would go and edit it. And then they would decide the next day, okay, let's change this now. Let's do this. So it was kind of like an ever morphing piece of
Right.
art, and which for me as the performer is fun because I didn't know what the final product was going to be because we shot, different versions of scares and different, I just genuinely didn't know what the movie was going to end up being. And we had such a fun time shooting. And then that one is, it's straight horror and there's a lot of scary
Hmm.
stuff in that movie. And so I was really excited
Yeah.
to be a part of that. Like I'm such a horror nerd, so I'm just like really proud that I was a part of such an iconic franchise. And
It is.
yeah, I should watch
Yeah.
that one too.
All right, well, let's get to the reason why you're here. Let's talk about the upcoming horror movie. You played the lead, Joey, in the horror comedy Touch Me. Without too many spoilers, can you tell us, tell us a little bit about this one? What can we expect from your character without giving away too much?
Yeah, Touch Me. It's it's a psychosexual horror comedy about these two codependent best friends who end up going to an alien compound and spending some time with her alien ex-boyfriend, who she has a bit of an addiction to because
Hmm.
he claims to be able to relieve your anxieties with touch. So I've yet to really figure out the most like succinct way to like what's the log line of this movie, but that's kind of the best I can. There's nothing else quite like it, so it's a uh, very unique project.
That excites me because I feel like everything is a rehashing of some sorts today. So
Right.
that's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it has so many genres in it, and it's so unique. But at the same time, it's really pulling. Like the film is the director loves Japanese horror, so there's a lot of homages to like House and like different and just different Japanese horror from like the 70s, 60s, and 70s. So it's not that it pulls from things that we know we love, like visually and
Right.
genres we love, but it is a mashup and makes it's presented in a way we've never seen.
Well, you brought him up, the director, Addison Hyman. What was it like working with him? He's another person who seems to have that same love of horror that you do. So I imagine he was very passionate about this one, and it's probably infectious, I would imagine.
Infectious is a great way to put it. Addison is wonderful. We've become so close. And we're working on something else together right now, possibly. And I just adore him. I got the script and I read it, and then I went and met with him immediately after, and we just bonded for hours. We sat at this bar and just talked and talked and talked about our own mental health and and
Mm.
I have obsessive compulsive disorder just like my character Joey has, and so does Addison. And I was very excited at the idea of having representation of that and getting to play a character who, has some similar traumas to me and anxiety and OCD. And I just wanted to make sure I was working with somebody who knew how to handle that with care. And like 2 seconds into meeting with Addison, I was like, oh, he gets it. He has lived experience in this. He wrote it for a reason. And it was
Right.
therapy for him to write. And I get that. And so Addison just created like a really intelligent, safe space to work in. And he was so much fun. He was so collaborative. Like, there's a lot of monologues in this movie. Most of them are about trauma, and he let me chime in and make some changes dialogue wise and like put input into experiences I've had or similar, and how do we kind of make mine Joey's. And you don't always get that. You don't always get that kind of collaboration, especially on the script. And
Yeah.
he really wanted all of the actors and all of the artists involved in every department to really put in their take and their, vision for it. So I think Addison is just amazing. He's a genius. I think his writing he writes dialogue like nobody else I've ever seen. It makes it sound so natural coming out of our mouths. Like, you know, who writes monologues like that? So and he has such a unique voice and he's such a unique person. And I'm very excited about, what he does next.
That's
But
another
it
thing.
seems
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it seems like you have obviously you have a passion and you've put a lot into your work as far as writing the dialogue and things like that. I mean, have you thought about, your next step or maybe getting behind the camera at some point?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a producer on this film and I've produced many
Right.
films that I've worked on. I love producing. And I kind of fell into that years ago, working in indie film. As an actress, you don't really have a lot of control. And I kind of fell into it because I wanted to have a little bit more control over these movies that I was like pouring my heart into. You know, you're not going to get paid
Right.
a lot. You're not going to get paid a lot of money on an indie film. You're doing it because you love it and you're passionate about the project,
Right.
the filmmaker. And I just wanted to be like, how can I support myself in this process and the filmmaker's vision? How can I help? And so I learned, you know, producing by survival, and then I fell in love with it. And I've directed shorts, and I'm developing a project right now that I want to direct. So yeah, I love being behind the camera, and I love editing. I love being in the edit. Like I love the whole process of filmmaking. It's acting is my number one love, but I like being a part of the whole thing. I become obnoxiously obsessive when I'm working on something. So I just love filmmaking, and you know, I don't think as an actor I'm anything special in the process. I'm just one piece of the process. So all of it has to come together for even what I'm doing to work. And you know, I just like being a part of all of it.
You mentioned his dialogue writing, and that's another thing that excites me because I'm very there's a lot of scenes that I watch. I'm like, man, this is a good scene, but nobody really talks like that, you
Yeah.
know. So so I'm glad to hear that he has a really unique and realistic approach to how he writes dialogue. I'm excited to see it. Uh, Switching gears just a little here, you've also worked on some projects with two of my comedic heroes. In 2015, you played the lead in The Vatican Tapes with Michael Pena, who I think is severely underrated. And then back in 2007, one of your first parts was in one of my favorite comedies ever, Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. Obviously, that was a smaller role, so I'm not sure if you got to interact with John C. Riley much or if at all. But what was it like working with Pena, and do you have any fun stories from either set?
Um, well, Walk Hard was such a fun set. I was on it for a few days. I don't remember. I think I was in another scene that got cut. I don't remember. I haven't seen that one in a while either. Wow, I love bringing up all these movies I haven't watched in a while. But I mean, icons, legends in that movie.
Yeah.
It was that I
Mhm.
learned a lot. Like that was one of the biggest sets I've been on at the time. And so, you know, that set for me was really just kind of learning how a big set works. But
Mhm.
everyone was so lovely. John C. Riley was so lovely and so funny and so tall. He, but no, I have nothing but great to say about that movie. I mean, I'm such a small part in it, but I'm still like really proud of that. I was just such a fan of everyone in that movie. Um, and Vatican Tapes, I'm really proud of that movie. I loved playing Angela. I mean, like I said, Exorcist was one of the movies that made me want to be an actress. So getting to
Mhm.
be in an exorcism film was always like something on my checklist. I really wanted to. And working with Pena was like a dream come true. I mean, that guy is so talented. He's so
Yeah.
talented. I agree. I mean, in my world, he's not underrated because I just like I think about him all the time, and I'm like, he's major. But yeah,
Right.
Same.
he should be in everything.
I agree.
So funny, and it was really fun to. I mean, he's really like a funny guy and really silly in real life. So it was a fun. It was really funny to you know, be joking around because we became friends on that, obviously, and like to be joking around between takes, and then all of a sudden we're like, you know, he's exercising me, and I'm screaming, and I, you know, and it was. We had a really good time. Yeah, I adore Pena. He's great.
He's so good. His ability to his diversity in his roles. He can play a serious role and give you just an incredible performance, and
Yeah.
then he can make you, crouch in pain from laughter because he's so funny in his comedic roles. Um, Another project that I saw listed on your IMDb. It's a movie that's listed as completed. I didn't see a release date yet, but Chuck and Hank and the San Diego Twins. I bring it up because I'm probably the world's biggest David Arquette fan. So I have to know, what was he like to work with, and what can you tell me about that project? Because I'm obviously excited because I love David.
That project is one that has we've been making that one for a very long time, and I'm not quite sure when it'll come out. I'm sure it will come out soon, but it was a labor of love and a really complicated one because it's a real DIY. You know, it's a side-scrolling video game, but real and with animation, and it's really complicated and so much
Wow.
artistry. So it's taken a while to come out, but it's gonna rip when it comes out. It's gonna blow their minds. But David is so great. He was so game. I can't believe we got David in that movie because I'm just a fan of that entire family. Like Patricia
Same.
Arquette is my hero.
Yeah.
And so when we got David, I was just like, oh my God, it's Dewey. I was like so excited. And he loves, like, he's really into fighting and boxing and all that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. And that's what he does in the movie. All of our characters are, it's an action movie. So he was so game, and he has prosthetics on, and like, I don't know, that movie is one. There's a couple on my IMDb that are almost impossible to explain until it comes out. That's
Yeah.
definitely one of them. But David's amazing. He is somebody who really loves filmmaking also, and is will work on an indie film even though he's iconic and give it his all, which that you can't say that about everybody. Some people just
Right.
want to come in and get out, and he was like, what else can we shoot? No, I'll do it again. Like he was doing his own stunts. So yeah, I have nothing but great things to say about working with David.
I'm also a big pro wrestling fan. I saw Josh Barnett's also in that one,
Yeah,
so I'm excited for that one to come out. I can't wait to finally see a release date because I will be seated for it.
right. Me too.
All right, last thing, and we'll let you go, Olivia. Another thing I'd love to ask you before you go, though. There's a lot of talent in your family. Your sister Madison is also an actress who starred alongside you in a bunch of projects. Your husband, is it Eli? I believe
Ellie.
Eli. Ellie Smolkin, cinematographer, who's worked on several projects that our listeners will be familiar with, including one of my favorites, The Final Girls. Such a smart movie. Uh, that's got to be awesome, having loved ones in the industry and even getting to work with your sister on occasions. But I am curious about that, especially. Is there a little bit of a competitive nature between you two, or is it just support and love all the time? I know how siblings are.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, Madison's my best friend. We are best friends. We're 8 years apart. So I moved to LA when I was 17 by myself, and she was young. And so when I moved to LA, we didn't have a huge relationship until she decided to move to LA and pursue acting. So she moved in with me years later,
Hmm.
and we have been inseparable ever since. She lives 5 minutes from me. But no, there's no competition. Like we're so unique in our art, and it's different, and we just support each other. And I love being able to work with my loved ones. Like where she models a lot, which I don't do anymore. So that's kind of her arena mostly right now. But no, I love it, and I love working with my husband. Ellie is so talented, and he shot 4 seasons of The Magicians, my sci-fi series, and that's where
Mhm.
we met, and we love working together. We also shot an NBC show called Aquarius together, and like we've shot films together, and I love working with my loved ones. I can't think of anything better than that. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're all just like workaholics, so it works.
that's awesome.
Absolutely.
So you've said a few things in this that I want to put you on the spot here. I'm sorry to do that, but you seem to have a real appreciation of cinema, which a lot of people I find surprisingly kind of treat it as a job. They're not really historians. You don't strike me as that. So I just got to know, are you familiar with Letterboxd?
Yeah, of course.
I got to ask, what's your top four on Letterboxd?
I don't use Letterboxd though,
Okay,
for my own sanity. Like
that's
being an
fair.
actor in the business, I have just found like you can get really caught up in what
Yeah.
people say
Yeah.
between Letterboxd and Reddit. I'm like, I can't read this. But
Right.
Well,
I
then yeah, just what would be your top four favorite movies then?
my top favorite movies would be The Shining, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Beautiful.
Um, those are always my two favorite, and I go between the two. I mean, they're very different films, but like I watch The Shining. I don't know, man. I watch it maybe 4 times a year, and
Yeah.
so I love Talented Mr. Ripley. Um, oh gosh, I don't even know what my top four would be. I love Cooper movies, so I love 2001. I don't know. There's so
Oh,
many.
okay.
That is such a hard thing to answer. Maybe I should get
It
back
is.
on Letterboxd so that I can have like a list ready to go. So when people ask me, I'm prepared. Most of the time they're like, "What's your favorite movie?" So I've got like my top two
You
prepped. But
top two.
no,
Yeah.
I love films. I'm such a cinephile. Like it's hard to pick your favorites. But yeah,
Yeah. That's fair. All right. Thank you again for joining us today. Be on the lookout for Touch Me, set to release in theaters on March 27th and on demand April 2nd. Olivia, is there anything else you'd like to shout out or tell the listeners maybe where they can find you on social media?
yeah. I mean, I'm just excited for people to see this movie, and I mean, you can find me on Instagram under my name.
There you go. Thank you again for joining us. It was a blast talking to you. And yeah, we'll be back next time on Don't Go Out There.
Thank you guys so much for the great questions. This was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.